Hello, hello, hello. So we're gonna be reading some scary stories from ChatGPT, and this is the first story. It's called "The Marrow Man." Harrod's End was a town people only passed through. One gas station, one diner, and a police force so small the sheriff's name was painted by hand on the front door. Sheriff M. Dunn. It was the kind of town where bad things didn't happen, or at least they didn't get reported. That all changed in 2003 when the first body was found. The victim was a teenage girl named Sierra Hemsley, found propped against a scarecrow pole in a cornfield, eyes wide, mouth stitched shut with fishing wire. But the most disturbing part, her bones had been drilled into and the marrow sucked out. The medical examiner called it sadistic ritual. Locals called it the work of the Marrow Man. The sheriff called it a bear attack. The FBI tried to investigate, but within days, the case was closed. Report rewritten, files lost in transfer. No one talked. But the bodies didn't stop. Every fall, one more victim. Always posed. Always drilled. Yes, what is your question, Sarah? Go ahead and ask it. The killer left no prints, no hair, no DNA. Just a small scrap of paper in the victim's pocket, reading, "What's inside must be removed." 20 years passed, and Avery Knox, a freelance investigator, reporter, and true crime junkie, returned to Harrod's End, his hometown. His sister had been one of the victims. Officially, she died in a car crash, but he remembered seeing her jaw sewn shut in the casket, and her death certificate had been signed by Sheriff Dunn. Avery wanted answers, and Harrod's End was still full of people keeping secrets. He stayed at the Whisper Pines Motel, the only place in town that still had keys instead of key cards. His first night back, he visited the sheriff's office. Sheriff Dunn wasn't there anymore. The new sheriff was Aaron Lang, young, polite, but guarded. When he asked about the Marrow Man, she stiffened. "Urban legend," she said. "The Hemsley case an isolate. 21 victims," Avery interrupted, "all filed under different causes of death. But they all had the same mark." He slid a photo across her desk. A sigil carved into bone. 3 circles stacked vertically like vertebrae. Aaron paled, but said nothing. That night, someone broke into Avery's room. It didn't take anything. Just left a file on his bed. No name, no fingerprints. Inside were photos, autopsy scans, x-rays, and a black and white photo of Sheriff Doon standing next to Mayor Elgin and a man in surgical scrubs. Behind them, a rack of bones. Human. Filed and labeled like museum pieces. Avery ran facial recognition on the man in scrubs. Dr. Quinn Ryle, former trauma surgeon, lost his license in the 1980s after being linked to illegal organ trafficking. He disappeared shortly after. Except, according to town records, Ryle had been employed at the Harrods and Medical Examiner's Office for 2 decades under an alias. The mayor, the sheriff, the doctor, they were in it together. But why? Why Marrow? Why pose the bodies? Why keep it going so long? Avery dug deeper. In town council records, she found something horrifying. A charter from 1954. It authorized a program called Project Reclamation, funded by a shadowy biotech company. Purpose? Experimental regenerative research based on adrenalized stem marrow. Phase 2 requires consistent harvesting. It wasn't just a cult. It was a contract, and the contract required sacrifice. 1 person every fall equinox, preferably young, healthy, local, and in exchange, the town received immunity. The cancer rates in Harrods End were nearly zero. No birth defects, no mental illness. A town of perfect health at the cost of 1 life per year. Avery published his findings on a private blog. Within 12 hours, the site was taken down. Then, the next morning, his hotel room had been scrubbed. His laptop melted from the inside. He went to Sheriff Lane. She stared at him for a long time, then said, "I've been trying to end this for years, but the system renews itself. You cut 1 head, 3 more grow back." Then she handed him a key. Room 9, Harrods End Hospital, basement access. "If you want answers," she said, "you'll find them below." The hospital had long been since abandoned, but the power still worked. Avery descended into the dark, twisted hallways. Eventually, he reached a steel door with biometric locks. He tried the key. It opened. Inside was a surgical theater. Old machines hummed. Vats bumbled. And in the center of the room, a glass tank. Floating inside, Sheriff Doon, eyes open, still alive. Tubes in his spine, bone marrow being extracted in real time. Dr. Quinn Ryle stood next to the tank, smiling. "You finally came home," he said. Avery raised his phone, recording. You're draining him. What the hell is this? Ryle turned to face him. His face didn't move right, like skin stretched over something else. We needed continuity. We needed continuity, Ryle said. The body of law and order, Dune volunteered for the town. Avery whispered. And the others? They were necessary. You can't feed the hive with one host. The marrow keeps the system alive. Youth, validity, immunity. Harrod's End is the last pure place left in this country. He reached out and touched Avery's shoulder. And you, my boy, you're the last descendant of the first host. We've been waiting for you. Avery ran, fled through the dark, barely escaping the hospital as alarms blared. He drove out of the Harrod's End, heart pounding, teeth clenched. And just as he reached the highway, his car stopped. Dashboard flickered. Phone died. And he heard it from the woods. Screaming. Something dragging its feet across pavement. And a whisper from the trees. What's inside must be removed. That was 2 years ago. Avery hasn't been seen since. But if you visit Harrod's Inn today, you will find it thriving, bright, safe, healthy. And in the sheriff's office behind the desk is a new face. Sheriff Avery Knox. Smiling. Unblinking. He says the town's never been safer. But if you look closely, just above his collar, you'll see a scar. Circular. Like a port. Where something inside was taken out. And something else put in. Hello, welcome. We're just reading scary stories from ChatGPT. How's your night going? How's your night going? That was actually a really scary story. To be honest, that was a creepy story. I'm gonna kind of change the music. Let's see if we can do something else. That's kind of creepy. Let's try this one. All right, ready? So here we go. Okay, hang on a second. What happened to the story? All right, ready? This one's called The Town That Vanished Every Night. Every night at midnight, the town of Dresden, West Virginia, disappears. Not metaphorically, literally. Phones stop working. GPS fails. Roads twist into loops. Streetlights flicker and go out. And if you're not inside before midnight, you vanish with it. That's what they say anyway. But no one really believes it, except the people who live there. And even they don't talk about it. Ellie Rollins didn't believe the stories either. She was a grad student in folklore, writing her thesis on Appalachian myths. She heard the rumors, ghost towns, weird disappearances, whole families that got swallowed by the mountains. Dresden was one of the towns mentioned in a tattered old field journal from 1962. The entry was strange. All buildings intact. No damage. No rot. But no people. All clocks stuck at 12 a.m. Something watched me. In the silence, I left before nightfall. Ellie had to see it for herself. She drove in October 29th, right before Halloween. Dresden was quiet, foggy, and too perfect. The diner looked brand new, but the menu hadn't changed since 1956. The people were polite, but stiff. No one made jokes. No one used cell phones. Every house had a large grandfather clock in the window, all ticking in perfect sync. And every store closed at 11:30 p.m. sharp. Ellie stayed at the Dresden Inn, a three-room bed and breakfast run by a woman named Miss Kettle. The woman was kind, but when Ellie asked about the town's vanishing legend, her demeanor changed instantly. "It's not a story," she said. "It's a warning. Stay inside after dark. Lock the windows. Don't speak to anything that looks like someone you know. And don't, under any circumstances, try to film what happens." Ellie thought it was just a spooky tradition until her second night. She couldn't sleep. She watched the clocks tick forward midnight, and as the minute hand hit 12, everything stopped. Silence. No wind, no bugs, no hum of electricity. Then, movement. She looked out the window and saw herself walking down the street. Same clothes, same hair. Only the eyes were wrong. Too wide, too shiny, but like glass marbles painted black. The copy turned and looked directly at her window and smiled. She fell back from the glass, heart pounding. When she looked again, it was gone. She locked the windows, hid under the blanket. She didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, everything was normal. People opened shops like nothing happened. Miss Kettle made eggs and toast. No mention of the night copies. Ellie asked the postman about the doppelganger she saw. He froze mid-sentence. It noticed you? You need to leave tonight. Ellie tried, but the road out of town looped endlessly. She passed the same barn, same stop sign, same dead deer. She even tried walking out, but the forest just kept repeating itself. The people stared, watching her strangely. One woman whispered, "She doesn't belong." The man coughed and dropped something at her feet. An old Polaroid of a different girl, same age, standing in front of the Desdin Inn. On the back, in smudged handwriting. She asked too many questions. She stayed out after midnight. She became part of the town. That night, Ellie boarded up her room, covered the windows, set cameras. She was going to document it all. At 11:59 p.m., her laptop froze. Cameras died. The clocks ticked. 12. Silence. Then footsteps inside the room, but the door was locked. She turned slowly and saw herself standing in the corner. No reflection in the mirror. No blinking. Just watching. The copy stepped forward and spoke, but not in Ellie's voice. In dozens of voices, layered wrong, like a chorus from inside a well. You look too long. You ask too much. Now you must stay. She screamed and ran for the door. When she opened it, the hallway was gone, replaced by an endless street filled with dozens of Ellies, all smiling, all wrong. Each one slightly different, as if the town had been trying her for years. Ellie was never seen again. But if you drive down Dresden, some say the GPS still glitches, shows an inn that doesn't exist, and sometimes late at night. You might get a voicemail with no caller ID, and a girl's voice whispering, "I made it to midnight, but I didn't make it out."